So hello everyone. First of all, it's really great to be here in Armenia and Yerevan. So my talk is called An SVG Tale, and it's about a little girl called SVG that one day meets a boy called React, and the both of them together start doing like really great things. So I'm just going to present myself. My name is Elizabet Oliveira, and you can find me on internet if you search for Milky Mew. Milky Mew is like a name that I really like. It's my cat's name, and so yeah. So a few years ago, I had like this cat, and I gave her this name, Milky Mew. So right now, I'm working as a senior UX designer for a company in Dublin called Optum, and I'm also like co-founding a startup called Untitled Chapter. And that's it. So I was born in Mozambique and Kiliman, and my mother is from Mozambique and my father is Portuguese. So when I was like 2 years old, I moved to Lisbon, where I lived all my life, and recently I moved to Dublin. I lived there for almost 4 years, and now I'm moving back to Lisbon again because I think I was born to live in good weather, and I can't stand anymore like clouds and cold, so that's it. So this story will be like split in different chapters. The first one is, I'm just going to introduce and tell you a little bit about what is an SVG, then when the SVG meets React, and then the Modal. I'm going to show you like 3 projects. The first one is very small and it's like a basic Modal slideshow. Then the second one is a more complex project. It's called Cassette Tape. And then finally the React Kawaii. So let me introduce you the SVG. It's a little girl. As you can see, she's really sad. Why? Because it's like she's despised by her family. Her family is like the other images, the GIF, the PNGs, and the JPEGs. And so her family say, oh, you know what, SVG, you are really different, you're really weird. So she's really sad, and in the end, she wanted to be like her family. But why is the SVG different? This is like the definition from Wikipedia. It says the SVG in an XML-based vector image, format for 2-dimensional graphic with support for interactivity and animation. But basically, an SVG is like this XML-based text where you can see all of this text, and it describes basically curves, shapes, lines, colors, and all of these descriptions will give like instruction on how to draw something. So all of these text will tell how the image should look like. And why is the SVG different from the other images? First of all, it's scalable, so it means that it can scale from small to big without any loss of quality or fidelity. And also the file size, if you compare with a JPEG or a PNG, the SVG will always have the same file size because in the end it's that file that's XML based. So if you make the SVG look bigger or small, the file size will be always the same. With a PNG or JPEG, it doesn't happen. If you really need a big JPEG or PNG, the file size will be really, really big. And the best thing about the SVG is that it's modifiable because it's almost like the HTML. So with CSS and JavaScript, you can actually modify it. And this is my own definition of SVG, is an image with superpowers. And how can you use the SVG superpowers? So you could use as a background image, as an image, or as an object. But if you want to modify the SVG and animate and create like great stuff, you have to use it in line. It means that you have to expose the SVG in the DOM. So to do that, you have to put it like in line. So this is the part, as you can see, the little girl, the SVG, she's really sad. And one day she meets this boy called React. And as you can see, React is really enthusiastic. He's always like smiling. And he says, you know what, little SVG, you think that you are different from your family and you are really sad, but I can show you that together we can create really awesome things. And I can show you that actually you have all these superpowers. And in the React world, I can show you how to use your superpowers. So the React says, okay, we have two ways to do that. The first one is to import the SVG as a React component, and the second one would be like transform the SVG into JSX. So in the first way, to import as a React component, you can do this if you use something like Create React App. So you just need to import React component, and this example has logo. A good thing about this is you don't need to convert into JSX. You won't have HTTP requests because the code will be inline. It's really perfect for simple animations and if you want to style with CSS. And it's really easy then if you want to update the SVG, I mean the design. So let's say that you're working with a designer and he gave you like a logo and then he changed the logo. You just need to replace the file and it's done. So this is an example of a simple animation that you can do. So in this way, I'm importing as a React component. And so it's basically, you have to query, or you have to get the element, to find the element in the DOM, and then you can do like animation, or you can style with CSS. In the second way, transform into JSX is a little bit more complex. So to do that, basically you will need to grab the SVG and then transform it with the, you can go to like the website to transform it. You can use like a Sketch plugin, or you can even like have a plugin in your terminal that can do that. A good thing of this, you won't have like HTTP requests. It's perfect to do like code splitting. And another very good thing is you can use prop, state, and event handlers. But a bad thing is it's really complex in the future if you want to update the SVG. So let's say that you have like a very complex illustration and you start splitting and transforming into JSX and move to different files. And then you need to update one part, so you will need to find that part of the file and replace it, so it gets a little bit more complex. But now the question is, why should you transform an SVG to a component? First of all, if you need to animate the SVG, and the second use case that I found is if you want to make it like customizable. So in this first example, it's a very basic example. It's a Modal slideshow, and I use like React and React both. So this is what I wanted to achieve. So I just wanted to have like this model, and my idea was to have like these two borders. And so when I was clicking the arrows, the idea is I wanted to have like a fancy animation. So first thing that I did like close splitting. So I split, so first of all, I get the SVGs, and this part, I call it like the border left, the border right, the styles, it went to the modal styles. And so this is basically my structure. And then I created like this function called handle animation that basically receives what is the direction, if it's left or right. And then what I do, it's, okay, so it's left or right, and then it sets the state to true. And then after some milliseconds, let's say 400 milliseconds, it will set the state to false. We can see after why I'm doing this. So then I have these two functions, animate left and animate right. So the animate left, basically I'm calling the handle animation and passing the direction left, and then I'm just basically changing the slide. So this is the example of the model JSX. As you can see, I have here the border left. It's basically a SVG. And I'm passing if it's the animate border is true or false, is it left or right, and what is the duration, if it's, in this case, will be just 400 milliseconds. So this is the border left. As you can see, this is the SVG, it's very small. And I'm using React pose. So with pose, I'm saying like, is it true, an animate border is true or false, and then left or right. And I'm going with the SVG path definitions from, it starts with the wave reset. and then I'm going to the wave reset for one of these, contractor or expanded, and this is actually the React pose. So when I say animation's true, it means I click the arrow and I say, is the animation true? Is it left or right? If it's left, it will run this. So it goes from the wave reset to the wave contracted for 400 milliseconds. So let's see. So this is what you can do. Like, I can also use the keyboard. Okay, so you can see it's a very, very basic animation that you can do with SVGs. And at this point, so the little girl is really happy because she starts seeing, okay, I can really do this amazing stuff. So she's starting believing in herself. And in this second example, I said it's much more complex, and it's called the Cassette Tape. So I'm using React, P5.js, Pop Motion, and the Web Audio API for doing that. So with this project, I presented in 2016 at Google I/O in Dublin. And the idea of this project started when I was living in Lisbon. And I decided to take like an iOS course, and I always work in between design and development, but at that time I thought that I could be an iOS developer. I can say that it didn't go well. I realized that I don't like to do this type of development. So my idea was to create just this iOS app where you could like record your voice and just do like a hip-hop freestyle. And I could achieve that, but actually the layout, I didn't like it at the end. So years after, I found the design, and I said, okay, now maybe I can try to do this. And I found that I could use the Web Audio API with the Chrome or with Safari. And I said, okay, let me try to make this app working in the browser. So what I did was I grabbed the file from Sketch and I exported it as an SVG. And then I did some optimization. As you can see, I have all the elements here, like the play, the pause, and you need everything. And then from that, I transform it into GSX, and then I start splitting all the cassette tape in different parts. So one part is the background, the buttons, the time box, the track title. This is the example of the track title. So basically, it receives one props called title, and it's really basic. As you can see, this is the SVG already transformed into GSX. It's very similar to the real SVG. The only difference is instead of having font dash family is like this camel case font family. So this is an example of the play function. So basically, I have like these different states. If it's playing, the playlist, the current track, and then I'm just, when you click play, if it's not playing and you click play, it's paused, so it's going to start to play, and the same, the opposite, is going to pause if it's playing. And then I'm basically setting the state, if it's playing true or false, the same for the recording part. And then this is how I'm passing the props to all the children components. So basically, as you can see, the center is where I have the wheels. I'm passing if it's playing or not, if it's recording, and the same for the buttons. I'm passing two functions, this, the play function, record, is playing, is recording. So this is the example of the center GSX. It's basically where I have the wheel animations. So in here, as you can see, when the component is updated, I can see if it's playing or not, and if it's playing, the wheel will start rotating. If it's not playing, I have animation called stop wheel animation. So it's really basic. And then this is the example where the buttons, so I have this on-click, where when you click, you can see like the play function will start. And let's see what I could achieve. So basically, I can record my own voice. It's a little bit far. And that is actually the part where I did the freestyle. But the thing is, I can only do the freestyle in Portuguese, so only few people will understand. But I know that I have two Portuguese, one Brazilian and one Portuguese person, so let's see how it goes. Okay. Yeah. Quando eu entro, sabem daqui eu arrependo num barulho representando então uma piada em movimento. Sabem que quando eu entro nesta cena ninguém eu pensa porque eu tenho um microfone e nesta cena fico esperta. Ok, sabem quando eu entro não há stop, é tema aberto representando o mistério pop. Sabem que eu sou Mickey Mil, nesta cena eu faço react. E se algum me quiseres também posso fazer piada. É mesmo assim, sabes que eu nunca paro. Eu pego nesta cena, sabes que sai tipo carro. Porque isto é essa cena, até podes fazer uma vénia. Porque representando estou no React Armenia. Ok, let's go man, sabes que eu não paro não. Sempre improvisando eu o poder da improvisação. Sabes nesta cena, sabes que é muito style. E não acreditas, eu estou tipo 8 Mile. Ok. Okay. Yeah, I survived, and now as you can see, the little girl is much more happier. She started thinking, oh my gosh, I can even like do hip hop. And now the final part is where I present this project, and it's called React Kawaii. So in the other two projects, we could see that we were basically about like animation, and in this one is more complex. It's more about customization. So in this one, it's called like React Kawaii, and it's basically a library of cute illustrations. And this is the story behind this project. I was working for a startup, and I was hired to be like a UI developer, but at the end I was doing at the same time design and development. So I'm really lazy, and every time I have to do like illustration, I always start to do something that I can use everywhere. I'm like that. So one day I started thinking, because I was having, this startup was, we are creating things for the cinema industry, and so I had all these fancy popcorns, and basically every time we had like a new scenario in the web app, I basically just changed in the popcorn the face, so I could change from happy to sad. It would like depend on what we wanted to do with the web app, if it was like a success page or error page. So, yes, Sarah, I heard it. And so because of that, I started thinking, okay, maybe I can do something like a bootstrap, where I can have like different states, like the success, info, warning, and danger. And then I start thinking, okay, maybe I can do this type of illustration called Kawaii. There is like a Japanese culture that is like best translated as cute. So I thought, okay, this is perfect if I want to transform into components. And first thing that I did, I started like designing different illustrations, and I designed like planets, a browser, ice cream. And then I transformed it from SVG to GSX. And then I defined the face components. It meant all the moods that I needed, like sad, shocked, happy, blissful, love-struck, and excited and KO. And after that, I created the face component. And the face component is basically receiving like the moods. So I have these props, and it would basically say if it's blissful, love-struck, or excited. And what I'm basically doing is replacing parts of the SVG. So let's say if the mood is blissful, I will render one part of the eyes and the mouth. If it's like sad, the eyes probably is going to be different, and the mouth is going to be different. And then I define the Kawaii component, and the Kawaii component is basically the body. So in this case, that you can have this ghost or the planet component, and then inside this component, the face component, we will receive the face component, and then we have different props, the size. And basically what I'm doing is I have these properties, width and height, and I'm going to replace with the prop size. The same for the color. So I have here the fill, and the fill is basically an SVG, is the color of the SVG, and I'm basically replacing by the property, by the props color, and then the face I'm receiving like the mood. And this is basically what I'm doing. And then you can have something like this, so you can say, oh, this is the size 200, the mood is set, and this is the color. And then the illustration is going to be customizable. So this is basically how you can import from import planet, browser, or ice cream from React Kawaii, and then you can set the size, or maybe you don't want to change anything, so you just import the component and render like this. And I transformed it to npm package, and this is how you can install it. You can also use yarn. And now let's see. So this is the part where I'm basically showing off the websites. So you can do animations. This is all the different moods. You can say sad, color, small. This is actually my favorite one, the backpack. And because the talk is almost at the end, the mood is sad, it's really sad. And you can change the color. So it's really easy to use. You can do the same with the ice cream. And it's light blue. And that's it, and you have like different components, and in the future probably I will have more, but because I'm lazy, I only have few components. And as you can see at this point of the story, the little SVG is really happy, and she realized that with React they can do great things together, and now they are like BFFs forever, and they're really happy together. So my talk is getting to the end, and this is just what I want to say, like, let's make the web fun again and create all these animations and creative things. And that's it. Thank you.